The morning began like any other on the Today Show. The studio buzzed with energy, lights gleamed over the polished set, and hosts Hoda Kotb and Savannah Guthrie smiled brightly for the cameras. Brandon Lake, the chart-topping worship artist known for his passionate performances, was the featured guest. He was there to discuss his new album, but what no one expected was that the interview would spiral into one of the most tense moments in live television. Brandon arrived looking relaxed but focused, dressed simply in black, guitar in hand. The first few minutes went perfectly. Hoda complimented his latest single, the audience clapped, and the atmosphere felt warm. But as the conversation shifted from music to faith and public perception, the tone subtly changed. What began as a light-hearted chat turned into something charged and deeply personal. Hoda, known for asking thoughtful but probing questions, leaned forward. Brandon, your songs talk a lot about grace and redemption, but not everyone connects with the faith message. Do you ever feel pressure to be more a broken bar mainstream? The question caught him off guard. Brandon smiled politely, adjusting his mic. I don't really make music for trends, he said. I make it for truth. The audience applauded, but Hoda wasn't done. But truth can mean different things to different people, Hoda replied gently. Some say your lyrics feel exclusive, maybe even preachy. The crowd quieted. Brandon's smile faded slightly. I think people confuse passion for preaching, he said. I'm not here to convince anyone, just to share what's real to me. Hoda nodded but pressed again. Still, you must see how that might alienate some fans, right? His jaw tightened. I'm not here to sell comfort, Brandon said firmly. I'm here to sing truth. The tension was immediate. Hoda blinked, momentarily surprised by his tone. Savannah shifted awkwardly in her chair. The producers likely signaled from behind the camera to move on, but the live energy in the studio had shifted. The air thickened with silence before Hoda smiled again and said, you're clearly passionate. Brandon nodded but leaned forward slightly. Passion's not the problem, he said. It's assuming motive that crosses the line. The audience murmured. Hoda tried to diffuse the moment with humor, but Brandon wasn't laughing. I've done a lot of interviews, he continued, and it's interesting how quickly faith becomes something controversial. The room grew quiet again. He was visibly frustrated now, his calm tone replaced by intensity. Savannah gently interjected, let's talk about your tour, but Brandon spoke over her. No, I think we should finish this, he said. The control room probably panicked. Live television thrives on spontaneity, but not like this. Hoda adjusted in her seat, maintaining composure. Brandon, I didn't mean to offend, she said softly. I'm just asking what viewers might be thinking. Brandon took a deep breath but didn't tease up. And maybe that's the problem, he said. We're too worried about what everyone's thinking instead of what's true. His voice cracked slightly with emotion. I'm not angry, but it gets tiring explaining that faith isn't an agenda, it's my life. The studio was silent. Even the band waiting to perform looked stunned. Hoda nodded slowly, clearly trying to steady the atmosphere, but the emotional current had already broken through. The conversation drifted into unplanned territory. Hoda asked, so, if someone doesn't share your faith, do you still see them as part of your message? Brandon's eyes narrowed. Of course I do, he said. Love isn't conditional. Then he paused. But love also doesn't mean silence. The audience clapped, some cheering, others uneasy. Hoda smiled faintly, but the exchange was now undeniably heated. Commercial break couldn't come fast enough. Producers gestured frantically, signaling to cut to an ad, but Brandon continued talking passionately. I respect you, Hoda, he said, but I think sometimes media likes the story of faith more than the truth of it. His voice rose, not in anger, but conviction. Cameras finally cut to a sponsor segment, leaving viewers stunned and curious about what happened when they went off air. Backstage, the atmosphere was tense. Crew members whispered as Brandon paced, still visibly upset. Hoda approached him calmly, hoping to smooth things over. I didn't mean it that way, she said. Brandon shook his head. I know, but you asked like my faith was a flaw. The words hung heavy in the air. Hoda sighed, realizing this moment would live far beyond the studio. When the show returned, both were back in their seats, smiling, but the tension was palpable. Hoda attempted to lighten the mood, introducing Brandon's live performance. "Here to sing his latest single, A Gratitude," she said. Brandon nodded politely, picked up his guitar, and began to play. His voice trembled with raw emotion, filling the studio with a haunting stillness that silenced every whisper. It was powerful, real, unfiltered. When he finished, the audience rose in applause. Even Hoda clapped sincerely, moved by the performance. But as soon as the segment ended, Brandon walked off stage quickly, avoiding further interviews. Cameras caught his expression, intense, reflective, hurt. Within minutes, clips began surfacing online with headlines like "Brandon Lake storms off Today Show after on-air clash." Social media erupted. Fans rushed to defend Brandon, calling him brave for standing firm in his beliefs. Others criticized him for being too defensive. Within hours, #Brandon Lake and #Hoda Kotb trended worldwide. YouTube and TikTok filled with reaction videos dissecting every second of the exchange. Some claimed it was staged, others insisted it was genuine emotion breaking through polished television. News outlets picked up the story quickly. Entertainment blogs described the moment as a rare display of authenticity. Faith-based networks praised Brandon for refusing to water down his message. Meanwhile, mainstream media debated whether he'd crossed a line by confronting Hoda so directly. The clash had ignited more than a headline, it had become a cultural conversation. The next morning, Hoda addressed the situation. "Brandon and I had a passionate exchange," she said carefully. "We respect each other, and sometimes passion shows up when people care deeply." She smiled, but viewers could sense the underlying tension. Brandon's camp remained quiet, declining interviews. His silence only fueled speculation about what truly happened behind the scenes. Later that week, Brandon posted on Instagram, "I'm not perfect," he wrote, "but I won't apologize for standing for what I believe. I have deep respect for Hoda and everyone at the Today Show. My passion got the best of me, but truth matters." The post gained millions of likes and supportive comments, solidifying his image as an artist who lived his words, not just sang them. Hoda commented under the post with the heart emoji and the words, "All love, my friend." It was a simple gesture that said more than a press statement ever could. Fans applauded both for handling the aftermath with grace, but the debate lingered. Was Brandon's reaction justified, or did emotion override professionalism? The public couldn't stop talking. Behind the scenes, the Today Show producers reportedly reviewed their guest prep approach. One insider revealed, they didn't expect Brandon to react that strongly. He's usually calm and composed, but it was live, you can't predict passion. The network decided not to air the unaired backstage footage, calling it a private conversation. That decision only added more mystery. Over the following weeks, the confrontation unexpectedly boosted Brandon's popularity. Streams of his songs surged, and his concert tickets sold out faster than ever. Fans connected deeply with his authenticity, saying it made him more relatable. Even critics who disagreed with him admitted that his raw honesty was refreshing in an age of rehearsed sound bites. Analysts called it the Brandon moment, noting how a single live exchange redefined his public image. He went from artist to truth-teller. One commentator wrote, "Whether you agree with him or not, he made people feel something real." The clip became one of the most replayed moments in morning show history, studied for its emotional intensity and human depth. A month later, Brandon was invited back to the Today Show. Many doubted he'd accept, but he did. When he appeared, the tone was warm and reflective. Hoda greeted him with a hug and said, "We survived last time, didn't we?" The audience laughed, easing the tension instantly. Brandon smiled, "Yeah, I think we both learned something." It was closure, genuine and mutual. During the follow-up interview, Brandon spoke candidly. "That day was emotional, but I'm grateful for it. It reminded me that passion needs humility, too." Hoda nodded, clearly touched. This time, there were no interruptions, no hidden agenda, just two people talking honestly. It became one of the most heartfelt interviews in the show's recent history. Fans flooded social media with messages praising both. "This is how grown-ups resolve things," one tweet read. The clip went viral again, not for confrontation but reconciliation. It was proof that accountability and grace could coexist. For Brandon, the moment marked the turning point from controversy to redemption. In later concerts, Brandon referenced the event. "Sometimes God uses chaos to bring clarity," he told the crowd. The audience roared in agreement. The line became a fan favorite, often quoted online. What began as a heated clash had transformed into a testimonial, a moment that deepened his connection with fans and expanded his reach beyond the church community. Hoda later reflected on the incident during a podcast. "Brandon's heart is pure," she said. "We just had a moment where passion met pressure. Live TV amplifies everything." Her humility resonated with listeners. It reminded viewers that even in tension, mutual respect can turn conflict into understanding. The entertainment industry took note. Producers began inviting Brandon to more talk shows, eager to capture his authenticity. Ironically, the clash that could have damaged his image became the very reason audiences trusted him more. Authentic emotion, it seemed, had become the new currency of connection. Months later, Brandon released a documentary titled Truth in the Spotlight, chronicling his music journey and the lessons learned from that day. In it, he said, "Faith isn't fragile, it's fire. And sometimes that fire shows up when you least expect it." The film received critical praise, highlighting how one raw moment changed the trajectory of his career. Today, when people recall that infamous interview, it's not remembered as an outburst but as an awakening. It showed the collision of belief and broadcast, emotion and professionalism. Brandon and Hoda became symbols of how difficult yet powerful honest dialogue can be in front of millions. Their story became less about conflict and more about courage. In the end, Brandon Lake's explosion on the Today Show wasn't about anger at all, it was about passion misunderstood. His heart for truth clashed with television's demand for neutrality, creating a moment both human and unforgettable. And through the storm, both he and Hoda emerged with deeper respect for each other, proving that even the most heated moments can lead to healing and understanding when grace wins out. In the weeks that followed, Brandon's viral exchange continued to ripple through the entertainment world. Opinion columns called it the defining moment for faith on television. Some critics claimed he had crossed the professional boundary, while others praised him for showing unfiltered sincerity. Regardless of opinion, everyone agreed that Brandon Lake had become more than just a musician. He was now a symbol of conviction under pressure. Churches and Christian media outlets began using clips from the interview in sermons and discussions. Pastors cited Brandon's response as an example of how to stay firm without resorting to anger. The moment became a metaphor that sometimes standing for what you believe in doesn't mean shouting, it means not backing down, even when the world's watching. Brandon's passion, once criticized, became admired across communities. In a magazine interview months later, Brandon opened up about the day. "I wasn't angry at Hoda," he said. "I was angry at how faith gets treated like a controversy. I want people to see faith as something beautiful, not divisive." His words reflected growth and clarity. He wasn't trying to relive the tension, he was reclaiming the meaning behind it, reframing the story with purpose instead of pain. Hoda Kotb, for her part, never spoke negatively of Brandon. In multiple interviews, she called him one of the most passionate guests we've ever had. She explained, "When emotions run high, it's because people care." Brandon cared deeply, and that's something to respect. Her graciousness helped calm lingering online debates. Even those who had sided with her adversaries began to admire her restraint and empathy. As time went on, the viral video became a reference point in talk show culture. Producers reminded their hosts to expect the unexpected. Training sessions and media schools used it to demonstrate the delicate balance between curiosity and confrontation. Students learned that one question could ignite an emotional firestorm or a breakthrough. The Brandon Hoda moment, as it was nicknamed, entered pop culture vocabulary. Brandon's music took on new layers of meaning after the incident. His next album, Heart on Fire, featured songs about truth, grace, and human imperfection. Fans immediately drew connections to his televised confrontation. He turned controversy into creativity. One critic wrote, "Every lyric feels like a response to that day." Brandon had transformed the narrative, turning scrutiny into art. The lead single, Unfiltered Grace, directly addressed the emotions he felt on set. The chorus echoed his journey, "If the world misunderstands me, I'll still sing loud, 'cause grace isn't quiet, it's a thunder sound." Fans flooded social media with praise. The song climbed charts across both Christian and mainstream playlists, proving that honesty resonates louder than any PR strategy ever could. As interviews resumed, Brandon appeared calmer but wiser. In one candid podcast, he reflected, "That day taught me that strength isn't just about standing firm, it's about staying kind." He shared how he and Hoda had exchanged supportive messages afterward, both acknowledging how live emotion can blur lines. Their behind-the-scenes reconciliation remained mostly private, but their mutual respect was clear. When the Today Show celebrated its anniversary that year, Hoda invited Brandon for a surprise return performance. The audience gasped as he walked on stage, smiling warmly. "I promised I'd come back with peace," he said jokingly. The moment was light-hearted and healing. He performed unfiltered grace, and this time, there was no tension, only shared understanding. The crowd gave a standing ovation that lasted nearly a minute. Afterward, Hoda hugged Brandon tightly and whispered something that cameras didn't catch. Later, she would tell a reporter, "We both grew from that moment." Sometimes the hardest conversations create the best connections. Fans love the sentiment, calling it the perfect ending to a story that began in friction but ended in friendship. It was television closure at its most genuine. In documentaries and retrospectives about iconic live TV moments, the clip still gets mentioned alongside famous on-air controversies. But analysts always point out the difference. Brandon didn't lash out, he stood firm. It wasn't rage, one media expert explained. It was conviction meeting pressure. That's what made it real, and that's why people couldn't look away. The authenticity made it timeless. The encounter even sparked wider industry change. Producers began encouraging more transparent, value-based interviews instead of scripted fluff. Audiences craved realness now, and networks realized that, in a way, Brandon had redefined what live television could be, not polished perfection, but honest imperfection. It was messy, human, and unforgettable. Years later, when asked what he'd tell his younger self about that day, Brandon smiled. "I'd say breathe. Don't confuse passion with pride," he said, "and don't forget that grace always finishes the conversation better than anger ever could." His reflection struck fans deeply. They saw not a celebrity defending himself but a man who had learned to balance fire and humility. Hoda echoed similar thoughts during an awards speech honoring her broadcasting career. "Sometimes our most uncomfortable moments become our greatest teachers," she said, subtly referencing that day. "Brandon reminded me that the best interviews are conversations, not interrogations." The audience applauded warmly, recognizing the growth in both of them. In the end, the story of Brandon Lake and Hoda Kotb became less about a clash and more about redemption. It showed two people, each passionate in their own way, learning through tension and truth. What started as a storm ended in mutual grace. The world saw that even when tempers flare and words collide, understanding can still win, and sometimes, losing your cool just means finding your voice.